Well, good morning, everybody. First map I want to talk about today, it looks back at the last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation through 5 a.m. this morning. We once again saw just large storms that kind of rolled up through the plains as they have been up into Montana. They've come out into this corridor right here from the Sierra Nevada, into parts of Idaho, Utah, and this side of Oregon. We saw very heavy rains in Montana. They've come down the Front Range. In fact, some flooding just outside here of the mountains in Colorado in the desert plains here. And of course, there was a massive storm system last night. I'll show you that again in a few seconds here that produced up to grapefruit-sized hail in and around the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. Now, low did curl up around the Great Lakes, and it's going to sit here for the next couple of days. But overall, the models did do a better job at finding this drier region out of this, but very late in the week, right? We saw much higher chances of rainfall, especially from the GFS into this area, and it has yet to kind of manifest itself as being the premier model as we go forward. Now, when you look at a map like this, my color bar may be a bit deceiving because it looks like a lot of people got rain. But what I want to do just to kind of make a point here about this is there's been a lot of model over forecast of precipitation. And I want to go back and just look at the same time period, but I want to take off everything less than a half inch. So this is everything. This is everything that is more than 1/2 of an inch of precipitation. And so now we really start to see where those deficits, where the folks that were missed are in this last 72 hours. Now, there is some good news, okay? The low is still sitting over Michigan, and Michigan was a major bust with this system. Remember how last week we kept talking about how the low is going to curl up here, and the models were filling this in? This low is actually too deep, too deep compared to what was forecast, and the flow is going to go around it. And it's going to bring moisture back into parts of Wisconsin, maybe northern half of Illinois today. But Indiana is going to fill in these holes, but not necessarily in Michigan. Big overstep in the models last week trying to predict this critical rainfall for this part of the Corn Belt. But again, this map just shows you that these are the places that you would be able to identify as, okay, they got enough out of this system, and then everywhere that it's white is places that still need a whole lot more. Same thing could be said for this part of Kentucky and Missouri, because as those severe storms ripped through last night in this area, we were anticipating quite a bit more rainfall here. Pockets of southern Illinois. I mean, this was a quite frustrating weekend watching the models kind of whiff on what this pattern was really going to be doing. Now, I want to show you just on satellite what was going on last night. So here's this morning as the sun was rising. Here's where this low is going to curl up today. A lot of cloud cover, very low cloud cover. We're going to watch on the back side for rains to come back around here. But there's still very strong storms this morning. This is still in the infrared. The sun has not risen here yet going on here. But last night, take a look at these things. Right here, look at these overshooting tops. Big time updrafts, plenty of cape, meaning a lot of instability, and they produce some very large hail. The Storm Prediction Center had reports of 4.5-inch diameter hail out of these. But again, you can see the storms rolling up the plains here and how cloudy it's been in California. In fact, I had to go back to June 3rd before the last time I got a clear picture of the snow that's still on the Sierra Nevada mountains. That's how much cloud cover has been in this area. Now, the smoke you see coming through here in the northern plains of the United States is coming from the wildfires that are in Canada. So let me show you them last night as the sun was setting. That's what they look like. This is British Columbia and Alberta. And the low sun angle gives us kind of an oblique scattering angle on that smoke, which allows us to see it a whole lot better. But this is just how prolific and widespread the smoke from these fires are. Now, there's good news for these fires in that as we look out here using the Global Systems Laboratory rapid refresh model, we can see that smoke over here does have a bit of an expiration date. Now, through the next 50 hours or so, it's going to still be there, but we're watching better storm chances come in later this week. And as those storm chances come in, it's going to really influence these fires and probably put many of them out. But watch the smoke curl around this low right here. That's where Monday into Tuesday we're going to watch very carefully to see how this all shakes down, because the upper level pattern has got this closed off. And therefore, it's going to be moving just very slowly in this direction. Now, look how the pattern has evolved. What's missing, okay? We had a big ridge across the Canadian Prairie for much of the last month. It's gone. Where is it? It's partly over here. But the flow is doing this. And this ridge is going to take over as our new most important kind of ridge in North America. And it's going to invade Texas. And as it invades Texas, we could see running over its periphery ridge riding storms. And those are not well resolved in the models just yet. We are still looking at a displaced Bermuda high. It's possibly in this area, but it spent a lot of the weekend up near, it's off my map here, but up near the UK. And I'm not sure if you saw this over the weekend, but there were people dressed in their uniforms playing like in a band, and there was such high temperatures. There were many of them passed out from the heat. But back to the U.S., this pattern as it evolves this week is, I think I just need to tell you, it's different. What is a missing piece to all of this is that Bermuda high, but the whole flow is starting to evolve differently for the second half of June. So let's get in there and start to figure out what that means. Because right now, it's very cold in this area compared to what we saw yesterday. And that's all on the back side of this low that's curling up over Michigan. Our all hazards weather map now has a large area here in northern Wisconsin and the UP that has a frost advisory this morning. But we can see where there's flood watches here and here. We've got the severe thunderstorm watch in place here, red flag warnings in New Mexico, and this is what I'm going to be watching for. This is kind of our first time this year that we've seen heat advisories that are starting to creep up out of the south in Texas, and I'll show you why it's the first time in just a few seconds. But as this low curls up, it is going to leave a boundary right in through here. And that is where we're going to see the risk of severe storms today. That's what you got here on this map. So from Colorado to Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and then over here on the Carolina coast up to Delaware. And then this is going to be tomorrow, still on that stagnant boundary, from eastern Texas to Georgia. And then you go into day 3, and it still sits here from Mississippi to Georgia. And what's going on is this. So let's get this rolling. This started about 7 o'clock this morning. So 2 boundaries to watch. One there, and a second one here that's going to curl around this low. Out in the Pacific Northwest, coming out of California, just storms coming out like this, okay? So as we play this forward from Monday to Monday afternoon and evening, you can see the low spinning here and the low spinning there in the front to the south. So isolated storms, heavy rainfall. This will be what a lot of folks in and around the Great Lakes Basin would be paying attention to. Because as we see today, scattered showers coming into parts of Wisconsin, possibly eastern Iowa, northern Illinois. This was the spot that was missed, right, this weekend. And then we see the model wanting to bring in very light rain. This is not heavy rain, but light and persistent rain into the overnight hours, into tomorrow morning, that could sweep down and hit those missed acres here in northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, northern Indiana. And then it continues to kind of spin around there through Tuesday afternoon and evening. And we know that the NAM gets a little bit gung-ho about stuff like this, but there is the chance of just picking up another round of rain here. This is not drought busting. It's cold while this happens, but there is chances for moisture to come through there. Now, that is not to ignore this guy right here. So this is on Tuesday morning, throughout Tuesday during the day. There could be large complexes of storms rolling to the south of this on that second boundary that really deliver a lot of rain, but also some very strong winds and possibly some hail. So please don't ignore this as well. Okay, let's go out as far as this model will take us, which will be into the early morning hours on Wednesday. And again, you see the 2 systems, one curling up here with a boundary to the south, and the second one still sitting over here in the mountains. That's how we're going to begin the front half of this week. From there, let's go ahead and just show you what the NAM is looking at in terms of total precip. And it's amazing to see how cut off this low is in the donut hole that resides over Michigan. That is frustrating, given how much confidence we had last week at filling some of this in. So there it is. That is what the NAM is looking at in terms of the next 60 hours of total accumulated precipitation. I'm going to ask you to look at where the rain is, not the rainfall amounts, because we're in summertime mode now, and the models are just not going to be able to get your rainfall amounts. From here, let's go out and just look at the next 7 days from 3 different sources. We're going to start with the WPC. So again, it is clearly identified the wettest corridor still sitting in here with the low curling up over Michigan and the storms there. But did you notice what's going on up here? Storms coming into British Columbia, storms coming into Alberta, a place that desperately needs them. To show you that on the ECMWF, here we go. So we've already seen through this point. Now that would be through the next, 60 hours or so. And what we're going to watch is the system that comes in to bring the storms into British Columbia and Alberta is actually part of a larger change in the pattern. And do you almost see the direction that the flow is coming right here? Look at this. See how it's coming in like that on this weekend? This is the new setup with the bigger ridge building over Texas as to where that precipitation is going to be going. So we'll go out a week and stop it right there because I want to compare it to the GFS over a week. Now, in my opinion, the GFS has been way too wet with too many systems. This is what the GFS has by the end of this next 7-day time period. So by 7 p.m. on Sunday, here's the European. There are distinct differences in the models, and we're just going to continue to examine those this week. All right. But what I always like to default to is, what do the models say in terms of the pattern, and what do they say in terms of the probabilities? So here's the pattern. We play through this week. The deeper trough, even by Tuesday night, still hasn't moved out of Michigan. We get out here into Wednesday, Thursday. Flow coming over the top here, coming over the top there. This is the trough that breaks down the big fires in British Columbia and Alberta. We then go into the weekend, and this is where the ridge begins to set up. That right there is the critical piece to all of this. It is going to bake Texas, and as this trough, which has been in every weekend model run, dives into, by next Monday, into the Pacific Northwest, our flow does this now. And that is not something we've seen in a while. We've seen it come in weekly like that and like this, and then there's just been a massive ridge in the mid part of the country. This is different. This is more open. So we're going to watch for storms to run over this ridge, and we're going to watch for the depth of this trough to keep things cool farther to the east. This is a pattern the models don't handle well, because there will be a lot of ridge-riding storms over the top of this and possibly some northeast flow coming in through here. So I'm going to show you what this all means by going next to those probability maps. Once again, the GFS is the generous model. Maybe that's what the G stands for. I don't know. But you've got to hear, no, I know it stands for global. But you see in through here that it's got a high probability of grabbing an inch, better than 50% in this area of the next 10 days. I then show you that for the ECMWF, and you notice that those probabilities are lower. You can see where it's got the highest rainfall totals. And this is, I mean, my goodness, are we happy about this? I didn't mean to neglect that. But these two areas are desperate for rain, and they're going to be getting them. Same thing for this part of the Cotton Belt down here. But I want you to see what's coming into the midsection of the country as well. The week 2 pattern, what we've got is 3 different sources. The CPC is really following the GFS. It's not that the European is dry here, but it is dry around the Great Lakes. What will be important to watch is the size of this ridge coming through Texas. All 3 models have that drier. Notice they've also got this part of the Carolinas into the mid-Atlantic wetter as well. A lot of agreement here, just not on this region right here. That is the driest in the ECMWF. All right, that's 2 weeks. We're going to cover the in-depth stuff tonight where we look at week 3, week 4, and beyond. Here is the precip ranks and why what I just shared with you is so important. This again starts on May 10th when the previous pattern became established up until June 11th, yesterday morning. And what it shows you here is how very dry this area is. So Michigan, unfortunately, sitting inside the low. Major relief here. We're going to watch what comes around the backside. Better rains expected here over the next couple of weeks, and a lot of storms in through this quadrant. More storms pop here. But this weekend, a system drops into the Pacific Northwest, as you saw, helping out with some of the rainfall deficits in the Northwest, possibly poorly timed if we've got some activity going on with like cutting of hay and stuff, but helps with the storms that are a bit farther to the north. Okay, sorry, let's get to the end of this. Temperatures now, this is what we're looking at in terms of GDD anomalies since April 1st, and we're going to keep looking at this. What is going to change in a big way is here. This is the area that's going to start to turn over red. Not California, they're going to stay cool. Much of the southeast is going to stay cool. But that ridge building in here is really going to start to crank up and turn this over to a positive anomaly, because watch what the temperatures are doing already today in this part of Texas. 103, 101, so around Austin, around San Antonio. I mean, we're just taking these temps way up high. The Pacific Northwest is hot as well, but much cooler around that low. Struggling to get out of the 60s here in Michigan on Tuesday. As we play forward, heat all week long. By Wednesday into Thursday, a wave of heat comes into the Corn Belt. Temperatures getting up near 90. But as we play it out into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it will now boil down to the influence of the ridge aloft, how much moisture transports here. And we're going to talk about this in depth tonight and where we expect those storms to run over this ridge. Okay, that's going to be the story. Lastly, I want to show you the 5-day sliding window of average temperatures. You know that California has not broken out of the cooler pattern. Very limited warmth, a lot of cloud cover, and a lot of rain. And what I just showed you here is that through the next 10 days, not a chance at that breaking. But from day 10 to day 15, which is what you're watching here, we continue to see the pattern doing something like this. And this ridge is going to be important to understanding who gets the moisture coming back into this area. The last thing I want to tell you is that tonight in the in-depth report, we're going to have a discussion about what this pattern means. There is no historical analog for it. We've got such warm water in the North Atlantic. That's a part of the positive Atlantic meridional mode. The ocean temperatures here in the tropical part of the Atlantic are already surpassing what they normally would be at the peak of hurricane season. El Nino continues to develop incredibly fast, but this negative, what we call Pacific meridional mode, that's the cold water off the Baja of California, seems to have a stronger influence because the Bermuda High is not where the Bermuda High normally is. But there's so much warm water to the north of this that it is very difficult to pick up on exactly how this is going to unfold. So I'm anxious to see the new models and see if we can make some meteorological sense out of them. So thanks for giving me a little extra time this morning, but a lot changed over the weekend, and we just need to see where this is going. I'll talk to you again tonight in the in-depth report. Thanks.